Welcome to Unit 8, Section 3, Population Biology. Limiting factors are any abiotic or biotic factor that restricts the existence, numbers, reproduction, or distribution of organisms. This could mean the amount of food, temperature, or water of an ecosystem. Ranges of tolerance. Tolerance is the ability of an organism to withstand fluctuations in biotic and abiotic environmental factors. Some organisms have more tolerance than others. Like the fish above, it has an optimal range in a variety of environmental factors, including temperature, pH, food supply, and so forth. If it's close to the edges of the range, they'll become stressed and their populations will decrease. But if it's beyond their range, they will die out from the ecosystem. Climate change changes limiting factors of an ecosystem. If the change is not within the species' range of tolerance, they will die out. If it is within their range of tolerance, they will be naturally selected and their population will increase. In this diagram, we could see fish A here. Fish A's range of tolerance is from 5 degrees Celsius to around 30 degrees Celsius. That's a range of tolerance of 25 degrees. That's a pretty big range of tolerance. Fish number 2, or fish B, has a range of tolerance from 15 degrees Celsius to 35. A little bit less at 20 degrees Celsius range of tolerance. But if climate change were to occur and the temperature were to rise to about here, let's say 33 degrees, that would be beyond the range of tolerance of fish A, so fish A would die out. Fish B would still be within its range of tolerance, and they would be naturally selected because of their ability to thermoregulate at a high exponential growth. The more reproductive couples there are in a population, the faster the growth rate. This happens in ideal conditions without limiting factors. This J-curve of exponential growth is how populations naturally grow in environments until they start getting close to carrying capacity, which is called logistical growth. This is the growth that occurs in natural environments with limiting factors. Notice, this looks more like an S-curve. Limiting factors stop exponential growth. So when a species is growing rapidly and it reaches carrying capacity, the level of a species that the environment can support, the population starts to go down. A lack of water, space, food, increased predators, increased disease could all cause the death rate to be higher than the birth rate, causing the population to level off at the carrying capacity. So before carrying capacity, birth rates are higher than death rates, and then at carrying capacity, death rates are higher than birth rates. Being at carrying capacity is not fun. Now again, the carrying capacity is the amount of a single species that an environment can support based on the limiting factors of the environment and the species' range of tolerance. Notice, when the carrying capacity is reached, then you have increased crowding, which makes disease epidemics more common. It causes a decrease in food supply, increasing competition, the negative effects of competition, resulting in massive starvation. Again, all of which causing populations to go down. Here we have a moose population. Let's say the average carrying capacity is here in blue, right? In the summer, the carrying capacity would actually go up because the food supply is at its highest. And notice, it's showing the moose population going beyond the carrying capacity, and birth rates are still higher than death rates because in the summer there's plenty of food. But when winter hits, so this is summer, But when winter hits, the food supply drops, and now you have an overpopulated moose population competing over a limited food supply. Massive starvation occurs, and the number of deaths increase. And we're dealing with increased starvation, increased overcrowding, which causes easier disease epidemics, along with being malnourished. And you end up with a lot of death. It is not pretty to be at carrying capacity. In order to stabilize this ecosystem, it would be smart to either introduce. So what's the solution to this? The solution to make sure we stabilize the ecosystem, because as we learned earlier, these dominant herbivore species could threaten the rest of the ecosystem by eating the ecosystem out of house and home. So the solution would be, one, to either introduce a top predator, or to become the top predator and control the population with human controlled hunting. And that way we can lower the population down to, let's say, here, a more acceptable level that does not endanger the ecosystem in the winter. Limiting factor types. There's density dependent and density independent limiting factors. The density dependent limiting factors get worse as a population gets closer to carrying capacity. That's why it's density dependent. Competition, negative gets worse. If you have a large population that's crowded, you can actually attract more predators, so predation gets worse. If you're overcrowded, spreading disease is easier. Epidemics get worse. And of course, if you increase competition over food supply, especially in the winter, starvation occurs. While density independent factors are natural disasters, climate change, human activity, and the seasons, which happen regardless of the population of the species that we're studying. Now let's apply population biology to human population. Demography is the study of human population growth. There are around 7.5 billion people on Earth right now. By the year 2050, it is projected that there will be over 9 billion. The question is the human population reaching carrying capacity? Well, let's look at history. About 2,000 years ago, we were at 250 million people on the planet. By the year 1800, we hit our first billion. By 1930, our second billion. By 1960, our third billion. By 1975, a year after my birth, 4 billion. By the year 2000, we were at 6 billion. And now we're at 7.5 billion. We're clearly increasing at an exponential rate. But thankfully, many experts believe that the human population is not reaching global carrying capacity. There are still plenty of natural resources on the planet, plenty of food, water, space, etc. Frankly, there's tons of undeveloped land that we have not developed for food supply, and the water cycle keeps us supplied quite nicely. So the question is, why are some places actually suffering from a low food supply and a low water supply? And that is because those places are reaching carrying capacity. Human population growth then is not a global problem, it is a regional problem, at least for now. The global human population is increasing exponentially as we speak. And right now, we're not close to the global carrying capacity. But at some point, we might be. The truth is, no ecosystem is infinite. As a result, at some point, we may reach human global carrying capacity. And But right now, it is not a global problem yet. It is a regional problem. You can see by this graph that there's a huge divide between population development in developing countries and industrialized countries. In this graph, you could see that Africa is at the top of human population growth and population density, followed by the rest of Asia, then India, then China, Latin America, and then the, in quotes, core countries, Europe, United States, Canada, Japan. So we're definitely dealing with different threat levels to carrying capacity in different regions. Some regions have reached carrying capacity and they're suffering greatly. They're suffering from starvation, from disease epidemics, all sorts of problems as their resources are dwindling. On the other hand, our country is nowhere near carrying capacity. We have tons of undeveloped land and huge amounts of resources. We're not even close to carrying capacity. So again, for right now, the human population problem is not a problem globally. It's a problem regionally. Age structure diagrams track the proportions of populations that are at different ages. Here we have the age structure diagram of a fast growth country with a wide population base. What that means is that the highest population density is in people that are under 5 years old, followed by 5 to 9, and then 15 to 19. When these lower populations in age reach reproductive age, the population is going to skyrocket. More couples, more kids. You would expect exponential growth. We are more of a slow growth country, meaning that our population age structure diagram is more balanced. Yes, we are slow growth, and we're kind of flirting with the decreasing as our number of kids that we're having in our country is decreasing per person. And in the past, per couple, we produce about 2.3 kids per family. Now, we're producing more like 1.7 per family, and the age in which people are having kids is rising, getting older and older, which means less children are being born in our country than they used to be. This could lead us to being decreasing like Sweden and also Japan. Now, some of these countries have a narrow base supporting a large population. Now, this is a problem when you're dealing with a situation involving Social Security. Now, so I guess before I go on with that, let's ask the question: which one of these is best? Which is good and which is bad? Is it good to be a fast growth country, or is it bad to be a fast growth country? Is it good to be a decreasing country, or is it bad to be a decreasing country? Well, the answer is it depends. If your country is close to carrying capacity, fast growth is terrible. You're going to end up with starvation and disease epidemics and war as competing over resources increases. But if you're not even close to carrying capacity, fast growth could be fantastic because it could help you develop your resources and increase quality of life in your nation. So fast growth could be good if you're not close to carrying capacity, or it could be bad if you are close to carrying capacity. The opposite holds true involving slow growth and decreasing. If you're close to carrying capacity, then slow growth or decreasing is fantastic. On the other hand, if you're not close to carrying capacity like us, and have a social security system, we could have a problem. It's called a population implosion. As our population increases in age distribution, right, where the majority of the population are going to be older compared to the workers, we're going to have a less worker to retiree ratio, which could lead to our social security system to go bankrupt just under the pressure of demography alone, let alone mismanagement. So we need to make sure that we learn from demography and adjust according to our where we are involving carrying capacity as a country. What problems will the increasing human population bring? Well, we're already seeing this in some countries that are close to carrying capacity, especially in Africa and certain parts of Asia. We see increased starvation and or war. We see increased pollution and environmental problems, health and environmental problems. And we see increased natural habitat destruction and the extinction of species.